Welcome to the 920 podcast. I'm your host, Logan Quinton. And of course, we got Charlie Collier with us, as always. Charlie, week one is in the books. The Vols went out to Arizona. They came back home to open up in Lindsey Nelson and scored a ton of runs, 33 runs to just one. We've got the Dayton Flyers coming into Knoxville this weekend. Charlie, what are your thoughts overall from week one on the Vols and, the SEC, the college landscape in general?
Thoughts on the opening weekend. I would encourage everyone to let's just do it all together here before we get into this podcast. Let's start. I'll count us down. Everyone on the count of three, we're going to breathe in. All right, 1, 2, 3, and then all okay. I think last year's team kind of set up unfair expectations for this team. And if you would have listened, in the offseason, I think this coaching staff, the players that spoke, consistently tried to kind of tamper those expectations some. It's just, when you switch over a whole lineup the way that Tennessee did, there's going to be some growing pains. You're still figuring out that catcher spot. You're still figuring out what your outfield's going to look like. And then B, Maui Ahuna and Griffin Merritt didn't play 2 out of the first 3 games. That's 2 out of your 4 or 5 best bats. And then, last point to all of this, Tennessee last year, they opened with a Georgia Southern team that ended up making the NCAA tournament, but they didn't really challenge themselves to the same extent. They went and played that one classic down in Houston, but they got to start off at home and rack up some wins for a couple weekends. And this year you went and challenged yourself. Sometimes if you challenge yourself early in the season, you're going to lose some games. But I've seen some people talk about, this could be a down year. This could be a lag year. When you have the pitching staff that Tennessee has, when you have a projected top 5 pick as your Friday starter, when you have a Saturday starter that's going to find himself in the top 5, top 10 conversation for 2024. And then we have a Sunday starter that's better than most other teams' Saturday and Friday starters. You're not going to have a lag year. That's not the case. This pitching staff, not only top heavy, but, or talented at the top, it's deep too. So a 1 and 2 start was disappointing, but I don't think the expectations for this season have changed really even in the slightest. The only thing that could change expectations would be the status of Maui Ahuna, but this is still very much one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the country and one of the title favorites.
Yeah, I totally agree. I said before first pitch that, and you give me this pitching staff with it being healthy, and I will take the lineup behind door number whatever without knowing what to expect. Because these guys, we know from the recruitment of Dylan Drayling and Reese Chapman that those 2 in particular are super talented freshmen. Then you've got some veterans in the mix, like a Griffin Merritt, and then some guys that have been in the program that need to prove themselves and step up. And you got transferring Zane Denton. I think at the end of the day, come May, June, it's going to be a pretty good lineup. It's just a matter of figuring it out. And Alabama A&M, man, that was a good opponent to get the bats going. We had the Charlie Taylor game, man. Did not see that one coming, but his teammates did. You could tell by the way when he went up to bat, and I think it was his 3rd at bat, because I think he had a fly out, a deep fly, and then a little grounder. But the first fly ball would have been a home run if it was neutral wind. The wind was crazy, blowing in. But then he came up and hit 2 home runs to the exact same spot in left field. The wind had died down a bit. And when he went up to bat for that first home run, you could see all his teammates got to their feet, got on the rail. They could tell he was locked in. And come to find out, we found out after the game that the team didn't get their bats, their newly issued bats, until after the weekend. Charlie, in particular, wanted the Atlas 33 and a half ounce. That's the orange one you saw. And that's his secret weapon now, I guess. So, man, that's going to be huge to see if he continues some offensive progression. Because without a doubt, he's the best defensive catcher the Vols have. And he's going to be receiving, look, Xander Sechrist mentioned after the game how, that's his connection. That's they grew up in Georgia, half an hour away from each other. They kind of had that bond from that. And he said it's his favorite catcher. And it's that rapport with some of these pitchers is going to pay dividends going forward. And like me and you talked about, Charlie, man, if this turns into a really healthy competition, you got Cal Stark that looked really good at the plate. He looked ready in the box last weekend. We knew he was probably the slugger out of the group. Man, if you get that competition going there between the two, I think at the end of the day, like, come conference play, you could be looking at a platoon or one really good option with a solid backup. What do you
I'm a big believer in Cal Stark. I have been since he committed to Tennessee. It's no secret. That's a guy I've been pumping up this offseason. I really like what Charlie Taylor provides you defensively. It's nice to have a defensive catcher. No offense to Evan Russell. I mean, he did an admirable job in a tough situation, but it's nice to have a guy that, is actually a threat defensively, a threat to throw you out, a threat to hold you on the base pass a little bit. I still think that there's some optimism that Charlie Taylor can develop offensively. And if he does, I mean, fantastic. But I tend to agree with you. It feels like a platoon is inevitable here. Whether it's Stark on Friday, Sunday, and Taylor on Saturday, or more likely maybe like Taylor Friday, Sunday, and Stark on Saturday. One of the two. Stark continues to hit the ball well. You could put Stark at DH on the 2 days that Taylor catches, and those 2 days Dickey can play in the outfield. I don't really have a problem with that either. But it's a good problem to have, at least, that they're making it competitive. This catcher situation felt like it could have gone one of two ways. It felt like it could be what we're seeing now, a competitive battle, two guys playing some good baseball, two guys giving you a good reason to start. Or, it felt like it could have gone a different direction where it was the lesser of two evils, where it was like two guys that, hey, one guy maybe not making the adjustment to the SEC well, and, one guy gives you good defense but still doesn't really have a bat, so you just kind of take the defense and shove them in the 9-hole. I was worried that could be the case at the catcher position this year. So, I'm glad that both of those guys are seeming to make this thing pretty competitive.
And they'll be receiving some young arms, some inexperienced arms, not just the highly touted draft picks in Dolander, Burns, and Beam. And that's what caught my attention. And maybe some of the names that some fans aren't as familiar with. Like, you go back to last weekend, Seth Halverson stole the show for me, man. He came in relief, and he had about a 4-pitch mix, sinking fastball, slider combo that they couldn't touch. He looked so good. And he threw about, I think it was around 50 pitches. I think it might have been 49. Great to see there. And then we saw Andrew Lindsay. He got out of some jams. Clearly, he did not have his best stuff. We've heard about him. Griffin talked about how he's got a deep bag. But, man, I was impressed with how he got out of tough situations. He kept getting behind in counts. There was a couple of 3-0 counts that he battled back and got outs out of. And I thought that was impressive. And then you fast forward through Sunday into the midweek games. Man, guys like Aaron Combs and J.J. Garcia, The second game against Alabama and A&M, they looked really good. Xander Sechrist clearly didn't have his stuff going. He mentioned after the game, he had a short appearance over the weekend and then got the start on that Wednesday game. He said he didn't really change a whole lot in the offseason. He said early on so far he's tried to overthink a couple of things. So I think with him, it's a matter of just getting comfortable and just getting some reps in competition on the mound. But JJ Garcia and Aaron Combs looked really good. They filled up the zone. They're the ones that got the ground ball outs. Sechrist, when the guys were getting contact, it was fly balls. Garcia, Combs got some ground outs, made short work of it, filled up the zone. I thought they looked really impressive. And then Zach Joyce, man, it's like having a clone of Ben Joyce, just a few digits maybe slower on the fastball, but it's still really good. 5 batters, 5 strikeouts for Zach Joyce. I couldn't imagine the Bulldogs being down 23-1, and here comes Zach Joyce. I mean, talk about kicking a team while they're down, but the Vols didn't really have many options, because when you deal with the run rule there at that point, you're just wanting to get out of Dodge. You're not really wanting to. It's so weird trying to manage the bullpen at that part of the game. So, Charlie, what was your take on some of these young arms?
I mean, that's what you want to see him do against Alabama A&M. You seem to be pretty bullish on Garcia in Combs so far, and I agree. I thought they were impressive in the sense that they came in and threw strikes. Like, that's what you want to do against a team like Alabama A&M. I just wish that I don't know. I guess I don't wish necessarily. I'll just be excited to see them against better competition if that ever comes to fruition this year, just to get a better judgment. Like against Alabama A&M, if you're a pitcher that's good enough to play for Tennessee, you shouldn't give up any runs. Like that's the expectation. It's no offense to Alabama A&M, but it's two completely different sports that these schools are playing. I mean, it's just a completely different level. So, the same even kind of applies with like Drew Beam Sunday against UC San Diego. He was great, even struck out 6. Like, I wasn't expecting him to have his strikeout stuff working in the way he did. But I wish like we could have gotten to see him throw this weekend against a Grand Canyon or Arizona quality candidate, like we got to see Burns and Dolander do. But we already knew about a lot of the arms this team had. If even more are going to emerge, I mean, it doesn't even feel legal at this point to have the amount of talented pitching that Tennessee does.
Oh, 100%. And, no one's expecting Garcia or Combs, guys like that, to really step up in class and hang with some of the big bats in the SEC. But, maybe there's one guy that kind of has like a Wyatt Evans type role from last year. Wyatt is a very talented pitcher. We'll talk about him. And he didn't get a whole lot of run. I mean, it was a decent sample last year, but he backed that spring up with a really good summer in the Cape. And, now that we're mentioning him, that's one that we've had circled. We were expecting maybe to see him midweek this past week, but we did not. And I asked Tony about that, and here's what Tony had to say.
Went through a throwing program, and Camden Sewell's similar, where you all would rather see us, our fans would rather see us win the last series of the regular season than the first. And it's not like we didn't take last weekend serious. Trust me, we did just as much as Grand Canyon and Arizona and UCSD. But those are two guys where we wanted to be conservative. And there are similar guys that are throwing for us in these games where, Joyce, for instance, is just coming back. I mean, he's thrown the ball this well in scrimmages too, but we're not babying him, but we'd like to progress him along. So, he's capable right now of facing a hitter if we really needed him to, but we're going with a progression approach.
How important was it?
So there you have it. Nothing major with Wyatt. just bringing them along slowly. You mentioned Camden Sewell kind of in the same boat, and I don't blame him. I can see it, and I expect probably one or both of those guys to be back over the weekend, if not next week. So, no concern there for me. What did you take from it, Charlie?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's you already have enough arms times two. You don't need to push a guy like Wyatt Evans or Cameron and Sewell in that from that matter. In the early portions of the season, if they have soreness, if they have something else they're dealing with, yeah, take it slow, ramp them up, go through a throwing program. It really doesn't matter until you get to March 17th. So, it's about taking the next 3 weeks and doing whatever it takes, 3-4 weeks to get into the best position possible that you can have those guys ready and ready to use against a Missouri team that all of a sudden maybe looks pretty decent to start the SEC schedule.
Oh man, to touch on them real quick, I was super impressed. Outside of Chandler Murphy getting that, he pissed down his leg, let's be honest, to open that Friday game. And Newbeck came in, man, and he kept it. He didn't give up anything and looked nasty. He's going to be a tough out for left-handed bats, and Tennessee's got a lot of them. But yeah, Missouri on the rise. They've got my attention. By the way, South Carolina. I know they haven't played. You talk about the Alabama A&Ms of the world, but South Carolina, man, they got the bats going. We'll see what they can do once competition ramps up. But that was one of our looks at future plays. We got them at 2-1. Man, just hours after the podcast dropped, those odds shrank in half, down to 1, and I've seen it even shorter in some places. So, anybody looking to play some futures, the time is now to sprinkle on some because it's gonna get jumbled up pretty quick.
Maybe it was just all of our listeners going to bed that dropped it down like that. Maybe we just moved the line.
We're market movers, Charlie. Speaking of the arms, let's get right into it. The weekend rotation brought to you by Crumble Cookies. This week's lineup for Crumble, we've got the staple milk chocolate chip, vanilla glaze with cinnamon toast crunch, birthday cake, Neapolitan, chocolate peanut butter chip, and the classic pink sugar. I'm going with the birthday cake. My pivot would be the vanilla glaze with cinnamon toast crunch. Charlie, who's your day one starter? Who's your Friday night starter out of these cookies?
The vanilla with the cinnamon toast crunch sounds good. Maybe that's my Saturday starter. Chocolate chip, that's Drew Beam. You know what you're getting. That's every Sunday. It's delicious. It's my favorite. Friday night this week. Did you say that there's a Neapolitan?
Yeah, there's a Neapolitan cookie.
Like the ice cream?
Yes. So it's got
strawberry, chocolate, vanilla?
Yep.
I can't even imagine what that tastes like, but I'm intrigued. Yeah, that's my Friday night starter.
Yeah, that's one with a 3-pitch mix there.
I mean, Neapolitan ice cream is my favorite. So
yeah, birthday cake. That's my favorite ice cream, and to have that in a cookie, can't wait, folks. If this weekend, if you're going to some of the games, even if you're not, I mean, it's a perfect snack, perfect dessert, perfect for whatever. Clinton Highway, Turkey Creek. Go check them out. You can get a 6-pack, a party box, have it for the family. If you're doing got a little get together going, watch some of this college baseball, some college basketball, they'll hook you up. And be on the lookout for a new location in Maryville coming soon. So let's get into the Vols weekend rotation, no surprise, the projected starters, Chase Dolander, Chase Burns, Drew Beam, they're going to be going up against some crafty lefties. Dayton's projected starters, all lefties. And a couple of these guys were staples in the rotation last year. Some guys that have been around. They're pretty interesting, but, at the end of the day, Tennessee should, if the bats keep going, shouldn't have any problem separating themselves. But particularly tomorrow with the weather, that one intrigues me. But what do you think, Chuck? What are you looking at this rotation?
The Dayton rotation?
Yes, sir.
I mean, the weather should probably help the pitchers out on both sides of this. It's going to be sloppy. It's going to be cold. Balls might die a little bit. Can't imagine it's super comfortable, whether you're Mark Manfredi or Freedy or you're Nate Espelin or you're Ryan Steinhauer. Can't imagine it's anything other than incredibly intimidating to go into Knoxville and play this lineup and try to match up with Dolander, Burns, and Beam too. You look at 2022 and Dayton didn't really ramp up their competition all that high. They played a series at Belmont. They played a series at Michigan early in the year. One midweek with Kentucky, but really didn't play anyone all that talented. No one even near the quality of team that Tennessee is. So this is a new look for all three of these guys. Like I know that, Manfredi last year, second on the team in strikeouts, like had a pretty decent K per nine, a decent ERA. It was 3.66 last year. His first start of the year, didn't give up a run this year. Struck out 3. To put it bluntly, I don't expect any of those 3 starters this weekend to really, have all that much success, especially compared to their Tennessee counterparts in Dolander, Burns, and Beam. I think that you're looking at another weekend of a lot of runs for Tennessee, much like the midweek.
Yeah, I totally agree. The pitchers are interesting. I mean, Ron Stanhauer, had a little bit of a rough outing last week against a good Western Kentucky team, but last year, he limited the bases a little bit. 1.6 or 1.26 WHIP. He led the team in strikeouts with 63, so not a super high rate of strikeouts. And then, like you said, Manfredi was right behind him in strikeouts. This guy that's going Saturday was a little bit better in limiting bases, a WHIP of 1.01. And he didn't get any run support at all. He had a really good ERA. He was only 1-2 in 9 starts. So you have to wonder if the Dayton bats will get going at all. You don't like their chances going up against the weekend.
There's so much stacked against Dayton.
Yeah.
The fact that Tennessee is probably a little extra inspired to have a good weekend after a rough start. B, you're in Dayton, Ohio. It's not like you've been outside much, if all.
In school.
C, there's just such a big talent gap. There's just so many factors working against the Flyers.
They do. They're a little bit of a veteran group, but I think there's too much separation here. The Sunday guy, Nate Espelin, he was basically a bullpen guy last year and didn't get a ton of run, and they're trying to see what he can do on Sundays for now, I guess. But in his career, only 13.2 innings pitched in his whole career, 2 years prior to this year, coming into this season. So will be interesting. I think that could be Sunday in particular. I think the Vols can run away from them.
Hey, 13 innings, not much of a scouting report.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the weekend rotation. That's the outlook. Some of the arms. Charlie, let's talk about some teams across the nation, across the conference. Anybody that's catching your eye?
Across the conference, I'll start, I guess, with you already mentioned it a little bit. I mean, Missouri, what they did was really impressive, taking 2 out of 3 against some really tough competition: Texas, TCU, Oklahoma State, and like you said, if they wouldn't have got off to such a rough start in that OK State game, maybe could have gone 3-0 on the weekend. With how good the SEC is already, it doesn't seem fair that Missouri also joined that group of competitive teams. So we'll monitor, how they continue to play in the non-conference, since again that is your first series going on the road to Columbia. Wasn't all that impressed with Arkansas. Don't really have great reasoning other than just like they didn't really do it for me. South Carolina, a team that, obviously both of us pretty bullish on. I know it's UMass Lowell. Not a whole lot you can take away from that, but they still looked really good. The SEC, man, really, I guess if you want any takeaway, they're just all so good. All just some great teams. And then also there's Mississippi State.
Yeah, man, we touched on it last episode. I think you asked me about Mississippi State finishing last. I still stand by it. Like, I don't think they'll finish last in the conference, but man, they are not off to a good start at all. Like,
they have the answer to the pitcher though, so everything's good.
Yeah. They've got talent. They have got some talent to work with. So we'll see if, if you're Chris Lemonis, you've got a month to kind of figure this thing out, because if you go into conference play looking like you don't know how to play D1 baseball, they'll get eaten alive, left behind really quick. But I think there's talent to work with, and I still have confidence that they can get out of that bottom dwelling spot. But for me, Missouri was impressive, super impressive with them. I have some notes and a write-up on them. I'm trying to get some stuff together for the SEC teams to provide for some people. I'm not quite done with all of it, but when I am, I'll let you all know. But Missouri is a team. If you're interested in like, why are you so bullish on Missouri? Hit me up, DM me. I'll share with you what I've got and tell you why. There's basically, for starters, you can take about 6 key players for them in their lineup that have returned, and it equals 896 at bats. And then couple that with a couple of pitchers that can really form into a 1-2 punch on the weekend. They've got a decent bullpen. I mean, they're going to be an interesting team going forward. And then also, we mentioned last episode, I think it was, TCU and Wake Forest for some like future options. I didn't pull the trigger at the best number. I apologize for that, but I did sprinkle on TCU and Wake Forest. You can get both of them at 25-1 right now. I think that's worth a shot. It's not extreme value, but I do think with both of those teams, you're going to get the best of the number going forward, because I have projected both of those teams having shorter than 16-1 odds going into the tournament. And TCU look like the class of the Big 12. All I was looking for with them is the pitching staff and the rotation to see if they could figure that out. I hate to be reactionary to like Wake Forest just scoring a crap ton of runs and TCU looking so great over just one weekend. It's not really that. It's just playing the market and not because people reacted and it's like, well, it's now or never with 25-1. You know, in some places Wake is 16. In Vegas, Wake is 16-1. That might have changed by now, but those are two teams I've got my eye on. So what do you think of some of the futures that we talked about? Maybe some teams that we didn't talk about.
I mean, again, futures we talked about. Yeah, obviously Wake just poured in some runs. A&M, very kind of quiet weekend for them. Just calmly took care of business against Seattle. South Carolina, you know, again, they they raked this weekend. They shoved too. Those what I'm trying to think of those. What other big futures did we have? Oklahoma State.
Yeah, you mentioned Oklahoma State. South Carolina was my first, you know, at 200-1. That was my first play. Now I've sprinkled on TCU and Wake Forest, and I think I'm going to hold there because you know that's just 0.3 or 4 units between those three that I've got going, and it's some nice insurance to have. I don't expect South Carolina to win the World Series, but if we can make a market move, a stock market type of play, that's more for what South Carolina is. TCU, Wake Forest, you're playing to win with those.
I think. Oh my bad.
No, go ahead.
I think there's value with a Maryland team actually that is challenging themselves. They are going to Ole Miss this weekend, taking on the Rebels tonight, tomorrow, Sunday, and then this is weird to me. They play in the Cambria College Classic the following weekend, and one of the schools they play, Ole Miss.
Yep.
They're about to play a 3-game series with Ole Miss. Go back home, play Delaware in the midweek, and then go to Minneapolis, play Ole Miss again, and then wrap it up with Vanderbilt and Hawaii. But they're going to get some good early opportunities. You know, they're another one of those teams that practicing up in College Park, Maryland, you know, probably a little bit behind where Ole Miss is in terms of how much they were able to ramp up and get outside. But if they have a good weekend against Ole Miss, that value could potentially shrink a good bit. So I kind of want to hop on Maryland now. And if they, you know, say they go down to Ole Miss and take 2 out of 3, or say they take 1 out of 3, but then they you know, beat Ole Miss and Vanderbilt and Minneapolis. If you hop on that future now and they go and do some of these things, which they're a talented enough team, they're more than capable to beat Ole Miss or Vanderbilt. You know, I bet the cash out is already double what the bet you put down is come March 6th, March 7th.
I'm glad you mentioned Maryland. As you mentioned, they play Ole Miss today. And as far as best bets for today, I gave away on your show, Charlie. It's playing right now. Washington State, UC Irvine, tied up 1-1 last I checked. But other than that, what I'm giving away today, I have, and what do you know? Guess who's calling me, Charlie? He heard me say best bets.
Who's calling you?
Jake Miller.
Oh.
We'll get back to him in a minute. But for now, I've got the Pickett app open. Folks, if you've not heard of the Pickett app, DM me, DM Charlie, get at us. This thing is really, really cool. What it is a sports betting tracker. That's all it is. It's not another sports book. You can sync your sports book to the app. It keeps track of your bets for you. Your up, your down, your wins, your losses, your ROI. Breaks it down into units. You can set your units. you can look at all the boards. It automatically, when you pull up the board for games that are going on that day, it will automatically give you the best price on both sides, and it'll indicate what sports book that price is at. I mean, it's super cool. And then there's a thread, kind of, I'd say it's similar to Twitter, where people just post, "Hey, this is what I'm playing. Oh, this was a tough beat." You can get on there and talk smack, or boast about your bets. It's really, really cool, and it's free to sign up. Use promo code 920 Logan to get on there and sign up. You just, if you got any questions, ask me. I'll send you the link. Just be sure to use the promo code 920 Logan, and be sure to sync at least one sports book to it in your gold. It's free. I think you even get $3 for doing it. And I've noticed, Charlie, man, you are on fire in the college basketball as we're going into the tournament season.
Yeah, since I signed up for Pickett, we are up 20.4 units in a week and a day on college basketball.
Yep, and I'll pull it up right here.
Yesterday, I was 8-2 in college hoops. The day before, I hit a parlay that put me up 24 units on the day, or 20 units on the day, or something like that. Just a nice 5-leg parlay. But I'm a big college basketball bettor, especially with the mid-majors and conference tournaments coming up in college basketball on Monday. I will be betting every single conference tournament game, like 300-plus games in the next 2 weeks. So go over and follow me for that.
Yeah, you're the one I'm going to tell on that. I'll be doing, for the most part, college baseball, and I'm up. I'm 4-2 this week, up 2 units just from Monday. Had a really good weekend last weekend. The only losing day I had, I think, was opening day on Friday. I had a round robin that didn't hit, but Saturday and Sunday were really good. We were in the plus opening weekend. I'm taking it a little easy so far, getting kind of used to these teams and used to the markets. But I got something cooking today, folks. It is. So I'll call this Road Dog Friday. I love some dogs today, and they're on the road. Maryland, you mentioned Maryland. I love them. You can get them for plus 180. Plus 180 is out there. I think it's playable to plus 150. UCLA money line against Vanderbilt. They're plus 110. Vandy, man, they can get there, but the lineup still has a ways to go, and some of the pitching does as well. They're deep. They're a team that you want to back on some Saturdays and Sundays probably, but UCLA has the pitching edge. Yes, it's at the West End, but Carter Holton, man, he's yet to take that next step. He'll get the strikeouts, but he'll give up some runs too. Unless anything changes. I've got UCLA. I think this is more of a toss-up game. And give me the pitching edge in UCLA.
I love UCLA this weekend. I love them.
Yeah.
Love them.
Arizona State over dude, we talked about Mississippi State. They're just not playing good at all right now. Arizona State comes in pretty hot. You can get them for plus 180. It's crazy. This is also playable, very playable at plus 150. And I'm taking all these. What I'm doing, I'm gonna add Wright State to that. To the board today. Wright State, you can get them plus 135. I've seen plus 125. Either is good. At Kentucky. Wright State isn't quite the Wright State we're used to, but they have their best pitcher going tonight. Kentucky has a long way to go. They were transfer you over the offseason, and they, we're not talking about big time transfers. We're talking about like piecemealing stuff together here for their lineup. And that might be a game to look for the under. before the podcast, the totals weren't released, I don't believe. So I'm dropping a dime on that parlay, zero point 0.1 units to pay out plus 33.60. But I'm also playing those individually for half a unit apiece. So, we go 2 for 2. We're in the plus, man. We're good to go. So that's what I've got today. Anything you're looking at today, Chuck?
I'll be quite honest. I'm in a battle right now to get the sports book I use to give me college baseball lines. So I am stuck in not being able to bet on college baseball purgatory. It's very frustrating.
For the folks listening, some sports books see Charlie as an illegal alien.
So I use one sports book, right? It's the only sports book in America that has verified me as a real human being. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. I've even tried to sign up for the same sports book that I'm on here in Tennessee and the state of Indiana, as well as the state of Las Vegas when I've been on, or state of Las Vegas, the state of Nevada when I've been on vacation. And the sports book that I'm on hasn't even been able to verify me in other states. But FanDuel, DraftKings, Actions, Superbook, Caesars, and Win, and Hard Rock, every single one, when I try to get verified, tells me that there's like not a match in my public records, yada, yada, yada. We can't verify that you're a real person. I've even talked on the phone with all of them, and I can't get on. So I'm only on one sports book. It's MGM, and we're not friends right now. I am a prisoner to them because they're the only ones that let me bet, but we're not friends. I need them to give me college baseball. They let me bet on men's regular season college volleyball the other day, but they don't have college baseball lines. So I don't have any college baseball bets until I win this war. I do, however, really like Wright State against Kentucky. I agree. I mean, you saw Kentucky last Friday lose to Elon. I kind of like Maryland. So I'm so on Maryland. I really like UCLA. I will be betting, I won't be, but I would be betting UCLA in all three games this weekend. I'm a big fan of this UCLA team, and like I talked about, this Maryland team doesn't do it for me. Or Maryland, this Vanderbilt team doesn't do it for me the same way past Vandy teams had. There's still just not a lot in their lineup that I fear. I mean, Enrique Bradfield Jr., if he gets on base, 2 pitches later, he's probably going to be on third. But I still just don't fear them the same way. And then I would have been intrigued by East Carolina today, but their game with UNC got postponed.
Oh yeah, I was looking forward to that. I don't know if I would have bet it because it was set at a what I saw at open was a coin flip. Minus 10. Both ways. But that one would have been just a great one to watch to start off your weekend.
Ryan is beating Virginia Tech right now, 4-1.
I saw that. It's we're going to see some of those crazy upsets so early in the season. Hopefully Tennessee can avoid those. We'll look and see what they do. We'll try to get this pod out as quickly as possible, hopefully in time before they kick things off with Dayton this afternoon. They'll play at 2 p.m. Saturday and I think 1 p.m. Sunday. So, and it looks like the weather is supposed to clear up. It's coming in a little early. So it's supposed to come in tonight and then, around game time from then on. Last I looked, it's supposed to ease up, mid-afternoon on. So hopefully they can get that thing in uninterrupted, get out of Dodge and, start their home. This is going to be a stretch where they've got I think they got 14 more games at home or something. It's a great chance for them to figure the lineup out before conference play starts. You got anything else, Chuck?
Would love to just put up like 30 runs this weekend. I think that Tennessee. Yeah, I don't know. You think over under 29.5 combined runs on the weekend? You taking the over?
I would probably take the under.
Weather or just
Yeah, if weather wasn't a factor, I would lean over. But with the weather and everything, and still, I got to see it again. From what they did on the midweek with the lineup and the way they hit. Like I need to see guys. They're going to step up in class a little bit, just a little bit. See what they can do against lefties. It's going to be interesting to see what the lineups are with the lefties that they're going to face from Dayton. So, but yeah, I would take the under on that.
I'm taking the over. Just because I think I think Sunday, like you mentioned, is going to be one of those open the floodgate type days.
You get half of that on Sunday.
Like that's kind of what I'm looking at. I mean, weather will jump back up to 60. I think he might score 15 or 16 on Sunday, and that's why I would lean over. I think the bats are going to start to get hot here. The pitching isn't going to be great that you're facing either, but I think the bats are going to start to get hot here. I think it's going to be a big weekend for Tennessee. Good to get Lindsey Nelson Stadium on a weekend now. Not a lot of people could make it over there at 4:30 on a midweek. Still, a lot of people did, but hopefully a lot more people can make it out this weekend, as is tradition. The first weekend series of the year, rain.
Yep, there you go. There you have it. Yeah, this. For those that, by the way, we'll get out of Dodge, but I wanted to touch on, folks from the outside talk about Lindsey Nelson and it being such a fast track and a home run banging facility. February and March totally balances that out because if it's warm weather like the other day, like we saw with Alabama A&M, if it's 70 degrees, guess what? The wind's going to be blowing in because the hot air from the south is blowing up, and it's always blowing hard east towards the football training facility. And then you've got the rain. It's so cold and wet during February, March. If you're not getting the surprising 70-degree weather, it's not neutral weather. It's like one extreme to another. So I think those first couple of months kind of balance things out in terms of the narrative that it's such a home run crazy park and a fast track.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
so that's all I've got, Chuck. We'll see what they can do. Let's see if they can get 30 runs.
I froze. Did I?
What? Did you freeze?
I think I just froze. I don't know. That was weird.
You're good now.
I don't know if it made any weird noises, but
just make sure that you get with MGM and kind of grab them by the collar, do whatever you got to do.
Just let me bet on college baseball, please. That's all
I think it'll be there. I think they had it last year, and if I remember correctly, I think it took them a few weeks. But
yeah, they had it last year. I don't know. I think a lot of sports books took a beating with some college baseball last year too, though.
Oh yeah, we're part of that.
I mean, I know it was probably the same for you, but I remember there being a lot of weekends last year where I'd head over to the sports book and I just look at the lines and I'd be like, man, they really don't know college baseball because they're giving away free money. Betting on college baseball last year was one of the easiest ways to make money I've ever seen in my entire life. I hope it's the same this year.
We'll see, man. We're off to a good start. We'll get out of here, folks. Logan Quinton, he's Charlie Collier. We'll catch up with you. You can catch Charlie on the Blitz on Fan Run Radio. We'll get the pod out as soon as possible and catch up with you guys next week. We're out.